Good morning, Dan and Amy. So I know you're. Why
I'm
aren't you?
all upset about this.
That
About
you're not
the
on the
walk?
you're not on the bus to Springfield.
Yeah, I know a lot of the moms from Blaine and Burley and Bell all hopped on a bus this morning at 6:30, $35, air-conditioned bus, no lunch, no snacks. So, and they're heading to Springfield for a 12 o'clock rally, and then
Oh yeah,
they're going to get back on the bus.
rally against math. Mark Burley, is that named after Mark Burley? That school?
No, it's not.
Is Bell named after George Bell?
No, it's not.
So CPS schools are underfunded, right? They need more money
Yes.
from the state.
So we're taking it to the streets, and they asked all the moms to please fill up the bus. But who's going to take care of the kiddies after school?
Well, let me ask you a question. This Crane's piece yesterday on the real cost of Chicago public school borrowing. District now owes $38,000 per student to bondholders in the pension fund. Finds that since 2001, in real terms, inflation adjusted, spending per pupil has increased by 40% in the Chicago public school system.
Wasn't it per pupil like 12,000 a few years ago?
Yeah, now it's north of 16. So 40% in 2001, 40% increase in funding over the last 15 years, and the schools are underfunded. How's that? How do you reconcile that? You can't. I know.
Well, what are we going to do?
I know that's the problem with CEO Karen Lewis and CEO Forrest Claypool and all of those who have presided over the worst public school, one of the worst public school systems in the Western Hemisphere for so long, who cry money as a feint to suggest they care about children or children's education when they just want to propagate a system that doesn't educate children and doesn't do so at exorbitant rates, including a 40% increase in real terms over the last 15 years. How about that?
I think a lot of the moms, a lot of the parents are concerned about teachers being cut and classroom sizes getting bigger and then extracurriculars being cut as well. And then art class, gym.
Let me tell you what I think a lot of the moms are. A lot of the moms are complicit. A lot of the moms are complicit in terrible schools and frankly fleecing the entire state to finance the Soviet system. That's what a lot of the moms are. So anybody who thinks that they're on the side of right by continuing to beat the drum along with the pickle bucketers like Karen Lewis and Forrest Claypool and Tiny Dancer and Tiny Madigan and Tiny Cullerton and Tiny Daly before them, you think you're on the side of right? You're not. You're destroying children's lives. That's what you're doing. That's what you're complicit in doing. And you're destroying the state's economy. And you're just financing guaranteed seven-figure pensions for the adults in the system at everybody else's expense. That is what you are doing. You are not doing anything good. In fact, you are doing things that are morally objectionable. Morally objectionable, as is every single person in the city and the state who votes for a Democrat state legislator, who is nothing more than a roll call vote for Mike Madigan, as we saw yesterday, or in the Senate, a roll call vote for John Cullerton. That's what you're doing. And I'd be happy to take responses to that. Anybody who's voted Democrat, you owe this state an apology. You owe your neighbors an apology. At least your neighbors are not voting Democrat. And you're lucky we don't start sending you invoices. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. And for more on this topic from a more...
What's the word?
Even-handed.
Nuanced or
Even-handed
yes.
perspective. We're now joined by our friend Kristen McQueary. She's, of course, a member of the Chicago Tribune editorial board. Kristen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, budget yesterday, you tweeted out Barbara Flynn Curry unintentionally provided a grand insight that there's nothing in this budget that we haven't seen before. So what's the problem?
Right. I mean, they trotted out this budget, as you've been talking about, with less than a couple of hours for lawmakers to comb through it. And so when Republicans started questioning her, she is Mike Madigan's right hand in the legislature. You know, what's in it? Where is all the spending? This is a budget, by the way, that would spend $40 billion, which is the most the state has ever spent at a time when we have, budget gridlock and the least amount of revenue to cover that. We're supposed to just take in $33 billion next year. And basically, Barbara Flynn Curry admitted that, you know, this is the same budget as last year. You've seen it all. There's nothing new in here. Your staff should have known what was in there. You know, it was just a ridiculous answer.
But there's no time in the world for people to go, and lawmakers and their assistants to go through 500 pages. So
no, of course not.
Passing it before you read what's in it.
Well, there's also there's not enough time in the world if you're illiterate and you can't read anyway.
Yeah, but who
So
wrote
that's a
this
problem.
500 pages? I mean, clearly Mike Madigan didn't.
No, I mean this is not unusual for the Democrats to jam through a budget at the last minute. I mean, I've been down there in Springfield where it is literally the clock is ticking toward midnight on May 31st, and they will jam through a budget, and the Republicans will stand up and object, and usually have a Democratic governor who will sign it. So the fact that they did this was not terribly out of character. But it was particularly cynical because you have these working groups of legislators spending hours and hours of their day trying to come up with some sort of a compromise, and this basically undercut that entire effort.
Well, it also exposed that whole effort as just a sham. I mean, it's like busy work for those rank and file legislators because Madigan has no interest in that. It seems to me this is a setup. He knows Governor Rauner is going to veto this budget that was passed by the House and will be passed by the Senate. He knows he's going to veto it. He knows he can't override the veto. So this is just posturing to set up the essentially campaign for the fall.
Well, it is, but it's worse than posturing. I mean, you're starting to see, pundits and everybody talking this morning about, that crazy cat Mike Madigan and what's up his sleeve. And you know what? There is nothing impressive or sly or mysterious about what he did yesterday. It was reprehensible. He is playing around with people's lives knowingly. And the fact that his Democratic members went along with this is it's despicable. It's beyond, there's nothing funny or humorous about what happened yesterday.
Well, what do you think about the 6 Democrats who voted against it? Do you think that they were told by Madigan to do so, or they really felt strongly about the budget?
No, I think some of them are kind of swing voters. Scott Drury voted against this. Jack Franks voted against it. I tweeted out the roll call. You can look at that on my Twitter account. Some of them actually probably did have a problem with the state passing a budget that would lead us into $7 billion in deficit. The others are just, then they can go back to their districts and say, I'm independent of Mike Madigan. I didn't vote for this budget. But, of course, they elect him speaker every year.
And they rely on him for funding their campaigns, too. I mean, it's all such kabuki theater. What do you say to this, Kristen McQueary? Emily Miller is the policy director of Voices for Illinois Children, one of the social service orgs that's suing the governor for payment. Both sides think the other is going to blink first. In the meantime, people are dying. What do you say to Emily Miller?
I mean, she generally, sides with the Democrats during this whole crisis. She believes that, the state is, I guess, headed in the right direction. And she, along with a lot of other social service providers, are, part of the problem because they're scared of Mike Madigan, so they won't stand up to him. And so they continue to be treated like second-class citizens. And believe me, this has been going on long before Bruce Rauner was elected governor. Social service providers in the state every year have to beg for money from the General Assembly for the past 15, 20 years. This is not anything new. And if they would rise up and, be a little bit more honest about what's going on down there, maybe some of these problems wouldn't be we wouldn't have such gridlock.
Well, why not just, we're $7.5 billion short on Madigan's budget. Why not just jack the state income tax to 5.5% and do some other tax increases, maybe introduce some new taxes and fees and just make up the gap that way. What's wrong with that?
Well, I mean, that's what they're pushing to do. And the longer this goes on, if Governor Rauner does veto the entire budget and we go all the way to November, spending much more than we're taking in, careening toward the cliff, that's a huge problem too. And that will put more pressure on lawmakers to not only increase taxes, but to increase them more than they would have had they dealt with this, in a responsible and honest way 2 years ago.
So are lawmakers going to be working through the Memorial Day weekend, trying to work on this budget, or are they going to wait till the last minute?
Oh, that's hilarious.
They generally do work through Memorial Day weekend. It's really up to the Senate now. And the Senate does not have to go along with this. I mean, if Senate President John Cullerton had some spine, he would push back against this and strip some of the spending. But again, he has not shown that he is much of a stopgap when it comes to spending in Springfield. In fact, I probably would predict the Senate will add more spending because they'll want to get in all of their special projects before they send it to the governor.
Some more meat
well,
on
well, if John Cullerton had a spine, Kristen, and if Candy what's the old saying? What was the old saying about Christmas? If little boys' wishes were candy and nuts, everybody would have. Wait, I can't remember
You
the
know
saying
what?
now.
Don't look at
If
me.
ifs and buts were candy and nuts,
Nuts.
everybody would have a Merry Christmas.
Yes, there you go. It's if and buts from candy and nuts. We'd all have a Merry
Dang
Christmas.
it! I kind of
That's
ruined
all right.
that. Yeah,
You did
that's
butcher it.
I'm unfamiliar with that one, Dan.
Yeah, well, now you can use it. And
I don't think she's going to,
Yeah,
Dan.
maybe you
I
can.
don't think so.
You deliver it
That's
better
a
than
good
I was.
girl.
How about same it as I
Oh
can't
my
even do that.
gosh.
Same as it ever was. I was going to do my David Byrne.
Same as it ever was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't do
Kristen,
anything.
what do you think?
I like that one better. That's a little more modern. I'm thinking Dan is quoting from, like a 1930s Christmas story. Not sure.
I can't do anything. All right. Kristen McQueary, she of the Chicago Tribune editorial board. Kristen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.